Привет из Дубая. С вами передача «Голубь мира», где разбираем крутые навыки. Спрашиваем на английском, отвечаем на русском. Подтягивайте язык или смотрите перевод в тайм-кодах. Let's talk about self-sufficiency and let's start with the definition.
Self-sufficiency, this is the state when you feel that you are able to do anything just with yourself as a single man. For example, you could stand a tent in the forest, you could put a fire, you could catch something to eat, you could wash the plates, you could create a tea, you could go far away, for example, for pole, for cross river and so on. And not too many people are able to do this alone because we want to go to the shop to buy everything and we are hope for the best. So we will have no fever, we will have no tiredness and so on. But if you are trying to cross, for example, desert or swim on the river for a long period, you will find that it is not so easy. Sometimes your things will go under the water. Sometimes you will run out of water in the desert. Sometimes you will feel yourself very alone. Maybe you will be hungry or thirsty. And the people who could stand with this, they became a great warrior. I was reading a book I remember the statement: if the person are able to solve his or her problems by himself, he became dangerous to other people because then he tried to avoid them. We are created to be a social animal, and we live in small group. We are cooperating to make some achievements. But if you are going to be like a ranger or like I don't know, path searcher, you became a lone stranger and you became very powerful.
And you actually touched an interesting point when you mentioned that as a human, we are meant to be within the group of people. And I do remember at one of the lessons, you were actually talking about the crab bucket effect. So if we want to be a self-sufficient, probably there should be some sort of like a gravity that the society will putting towards us. So how to actually get rid of it and make sure that we still can, like survive in whatever circumstances by ourselves.
Let's take examples in your life, in exactly your life. To start to create this podcast, it also was a gravity, and you were thinking, if it is worth to do, maybe some people will laugh, maybe it will take some of my time, maybe I could spend my life in a better way. Then we start to write an article, and you were decided, but a lot of people around me do not do this. So it is not a crab basket outside of us. We have the same feeling in us. So we think, why should I step out of the row because everyone else just standing and do nothing? But if you will spend your life in such a small steps, you will find a miracle turning. For example, several days ago, suddenly I realized that I have already created 92 books for 6 years, and it was very unusual. I do not know many people who write so many books. Yes, okay, I was working for a huge company for 20 years and I have 1,200 presentation, and I just described it, but I have created this presentation without any asking. So when you do a bit more than everyone else, you became self-sufficient. For example, not too many people iron their t-shirt. Sometimes I do podcast with some famous so-called bloggers, and they come into the camera with maybe clean but not ironed t-shirt, and I'm thinking how they dare to show themselves before the people. Or for example, sometimes I see the documents created by some people who do not want to learn Word or Excel or some other programs, and I think how they dare to think that they are professional. Sometimes I go into conferences and I listen to people who read the speech from the paper, and suddenly I realize that they have already paid. I have been on maybe 3 years ago in Sokolniki Park in Moscow on conference, and suddenly this was a man with a silver hair, and he was taking his paper and read it from this sheet. And I was asking of people who created this conference, why do you allow such a kind of speech? And suddenly it was a reply: he has paid 10,000 euros. We were forced to give them his chance.
Well, yeah, I do believe like sometimes self-sufficiency might be perceived in a completely different way, and when you think someone is actually can do everything, but the moment you see them executing stuff, probably it's a different story that completely on opposite side to what they say. But when we go back to the self-sufficiency, what kind of building blocks or what kind of moving parts it has as a foundation?
First, you should remember about your body. Let's think that your body is your movement part. It's like your wheel, like wheel, both way, wheel that touching the ground, and also steering wheel. Without body, you will be not able to go, to swim, to breathe, to think. Second, you should fill yourself with knowledge that's about ahead. If you have just phone, Wi-Fi, internet, yes, you could be connected to some databases, but sometimes it is not possible because you will be out of network, or maybe it would be no electricity, or your battery will fall down, so you have nothing inside your head. And the last, I think, for self-sufficient man is confidence that you could manage something. You know, there is a saying in Russian language: if you have any wish, gods will give you also forces to gain it.
It sounds like a very well layered cake. So when it comes to the different levels of self-sufficiency, obviously, like it's like how you balance all of your dependencies, or maybe some sort of like a gaps or knowledge of such gaps in order to overcome it and be like a truly self-sufficient. So what are the levels or steps you need to go through in order to be like a completely independent, completely well-rounded?
First, you should think about yourself. You should calculate how many money do you need, and how many things you should have to live without any lack of something. Second, you should understand for yourself how many people depend from you. Maybe it's your daughter, maybe it's your son, maybe mother, father, grandma, grandpa, and so on. And you are trying to help them. So you're not just worried about yourself, but about a small cycle of people who are your relatives. And third, this is when you're trying to help someone else. For example, for orphan who has no father or mother, maybe you will help to some old man or old woman who live nearby because they are not able to go to buy a milk or bread or something else. And if you are helping people, then you understand the way you live. Because if you think just about yourself, you think about your stomach and about your wishes. But if you have vicious people around you, you will forget about your personal wishes.
And if we look at the skill as the, like something where you actually remove all of the roots or all of the connections that brings you, like that builds the dependency. Like, for example, like you store your files into the cloud, or, like there is an opinion that you definitely depend on. So how you go about like to say no to certain things and maybe cut loose all of the connections, or even assessing what exactly should be cut or what exactly you still can keep in order to, like efficiently execute stuff.
You should understand that your life do not belong to you. If you will go, for example, to a cemetery, you will lose all your money and all your belonging. So you should think as a backpacker. If something is healthy and helpful, you should keep it with you. But if you have something painful and unhealthy, you should cut it off. And it is not easy. This is about relations. This is about people, about job, about boss, about some kind of food or drinks. And it is easy just to drink beer, to eat junk food, to lay on the sofa, to watch TV, but you should cut it off, because you will became like a stone which would go deeper and deeper in the river.
And when we think about ourselves as the vehicle that actually carries our brain and, like all of the things that we do possess, I do believe it's from time to time we actually can find ourselves that, like we got like a couple of things that we don't really need. We got a couple of like a relationship that we don't really need. So it's like a bit of like a garbage that we started collecting. So how to go about the process of making sure that like whatever we have as a ship like below the water is how to make sure we keep it clean.
Let's take a picture that you draw for us as a ship. If you will go in a warm ocean, you will find a lot of small creatures on your niche, on your bottom.
Bottom.
Small shelves will catch you, and they will grow, and they will make you slow. When I was working in Japan, I suddenly found that there are several people who live in minimalism way. So they were trying to live with 27 or 33 pieces of something in their life. It's very funny. For example, bed, it was one thing. Cup, it was second. It is almost impossible for me to live with such a small amount of pieces of something. But then I realized now I am as a ship with these shells, and was moving already for 6 times in different countries. And for example, in Russia, I moved. I was taking just 2 suitcases and 10,000 US bucks, and it was enough to grow from the seed to the small tree. So if you have something, you should be ready to lose it. For example, if I will move from this flat, I will put everything on the side. I will take just maybe several t-shirts, trousers, socks, and I don't know, some shoes, nothing more. Even I will put here all that plates and cups and iron and vacuum cleaner. It is the time to buy a new one. So if you spend your life to buy things, you will become a thing. But if you will collect idea, you will become idea by yourself.
Somehow it reminds me all of this like a sci-fi books where you have like a spaceship traveler, and what they need is only their ship, and so that they can like travel across the galactic and see different people. But what again, like what they need is just like some sort of vehicle so that just can proceed. Now, if we're talking about the future of self-sufficiency, if you look at how the modern world is built, like like we got so many services or like so many businesses or so many people it's like trying to how to say like put a hook on us and connect to us, or maybe even like knocking into our souls, trying to like crave for some like a little space more and more, trying to keep us connected to whatever things. So what will be the future of the man who is still, of the man or group of men who's still trying to be a self-sufficient and maybe trying to make sure that whatever group they work with, they also keep the same kind of the cadence or habits or the mechanics?
Last week, I was reading an article about colonization of Moon, and this was research how many people are sufficient to live there for a very long time. And it was experiment. This was about mathematical modeling, and scientists were trying to put 10 to 200 people in different variation on the moon space, and they were trying to find stable group of people who are able to live for a long. And they realized that 22% is quite enough to live for a long. And I was thinking just 22 people, and they will get like 50,000 kilos of useful weight, and they could live forever. And it was very funny. And I was thinking that when you are going to mountains, for example, for 2 weeks, if you are going to desert, or you're going through Atlantic Ocean or Pacific Ocean for, I don't know, 2 months, it is a very short period of time comparing to what you should do if you are traveling to Moon, to Venus, or to Mars. And maybe sufficient men would stand for it.
А мы рассмотрели навык самодостаточность и чем он полезен именно вам. Всем мира!